Good evening and welcome to the Kim B. Davis Show. We are live for another great episode. This evening, we have author, blogger, philosopher, mental health advocate, Kelly Greene. Good evening, Kelly. How are you?
Good evening. Good evening.
So, you know, it feels like, Kelly, every time you come on the show, something's happened. And 2020 has been one of those years where it feels like it's been here for 10 years, but we are only into like the ninth month, and it feels like it's been much longer than that. And I don't know about you, but when 2020 started, I didn't picture COVID happening. I didn't picture quarantine and pandemic. I didn't picture George Floyd being murdered live on television. I didn't picture Rashard Brooks. I believe he was in Atlanta. I didn't picture Breonna Taylor being murdered in her home. And yet here we are. We have just learned in the last couple of days that her family was given a settlement by, I believe, the city, and they were given $12 million. And one of the police officers was charged with wanton endangerment because he shot through a wall, I believe. We have national unrest. We've had protests erupt around this country, and we have an election that is very ugly. And every time you turn around, whether you turn on the radio or television, you hear each side attacking the other. As a Black man in America today, what does that feel like?
It feels like the civil rights movement is still going on and it's still fresh. Uh, it's kind of hard to say because I've been very critical. I've been critical of the NAACP because it seems like for that to come out of the civil rights movement, for us to still be here, what's been done in between. I also feel that our Black leadership is partially blame also. We've gotten to look at me taking a selfie with these white dignitaries or whatever. But at the end of the day, it was basically a patch on the head, goodbye Black people type of deal. Uh, it's so many factors that goes into that question. It's just I think it's all inclusive because all feeds into the fact that it's election. This is white America getting back at us for electing President Obama. There is a number of things going. I can't put on exactly which one, but I never. Let's take it back. I did think we would kind of be somewhere at a state of unrest, given Donald Trump being Donald Trump, and what we always known Donald Trump to be a very inciting person already. If you looked at his reality shows, and what he's done is brought that to America and used racism as the pivot point. So here's where we are.
So, what do you say? Because all across social media, there are a lot of people who are saying it's not the police officer's fault, it's the people who drew up the warrants. Or, we're sorry that this happened, but the people who support Trump, we aren't against Black people or other people. Um, the language that he uses, like you said, he incites, or he's very incendiary in his language, and he's always using words to rile up his people. And so I've witnessed several conversations across social media where people literally are trying to explain away what we see. And I tell people, I said, you know what? Every time the president comes on and he says what he's going to do, that's what he does. Why are we doubting him?
The thing about it is we've always known that America has been a very racist country, period. That's just what it's always been. Think about it, when the white elites control all the money and they want to flex their muscle, or they want to impose their will, this is how they do it. I guess they got to a point where what Donald Trump does is just kind of like peel back the cover of what America really is. And he's trying to use it to his advantage. And it's very destructive, because whereas we made some progress, so, interpersonally with some whites, there's an overall still a sense of white privilege. And I hate to say it, but I think we could get worse. And then about it, the police has always been white privilege's kind of stick, if you want to use an analogy. So this is just white privilege embracing the stick. It's always been the police that's we talk about the system and how it fringes upon, basically is us. It's not justice, it's just us. So it's them reinforcing the status of just us and trying to not let us forget it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we see it time and time again. We just saw it with Breonna Taylor. Police officer was charged with a very low charge that really doesn't require jail time in terms of what the Black community wanted to see. We didn't see a murder charge that would have garnered much more time. I know that there was a case, and I believe it was in Minnesota, where a Black police officer shot, and I'm not sure if he killed the white woman, but I believe I know she was shot.
I know you're talking. Yeah, he did kill her.
He killed her, and they sent him to jail.
Yeah, he's still in jail. He got a very tough sentence.
Yes.
By standard of all these white police officers scot free, he got, I can't recall, but he got a long sentence.
Right.
And it's you gotta look at the reason we have dirty cops, and these cops will get like swept on the rug, and this is what they use for, and they're just pretty much hey, come over here, sit down, cool out, and we'll take care of you. I was told by a cop a long time ago, he said, good cops suffer when they don't report bad cops.
Mm-hmm.
And think about it, we have a system that is embraced bad cops. So what do you tell good cops who are trying to fight, or what do you tell the society who's been oppressed by bad police? And this is where we're at.
Exactly. And, I always tell people, I said, I understand that all cops aren't bad. I said, we're not talking about that on the Kim B. Davis show. We're not saying that all cops are bad. Just like we're saying that all Black people aren't criminals, like some people like to portray us. However, as you said, because the system has embraced bad cops, and we've seen it over and over again, even in Metro Detroit, was a couple of years ago. I don't know if you remember the African-American gentleman who was in Highland Park. He was driving his white Cadillac, and 3 police officers pulled him over, and we saw the body cam footage in the police station where they literally were beating him, and they tried to come up with a story, but the body cam footage refuted the story, and it turned out that these police officers had been abusing people. It's the same story we hear when we hear about the police officer who killed George Floyd. He had a jacket, what they call his folder or his file, of accusations against him. We can go down the line of people. It's been a lot this week. I'll just say that. And
yeah, it has.
And the whole. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry. If I just kind of if I may interrupt and kind of like, this is what young Black America has been saying for so long, and now we're able to show it on camera.
Mm-hmm.
This is what Ice Cube and NWA is talking about. This is what Tupac and everybody's talking about. We talking about the police in LA. This is what happens when you do not nip that in the bud.
Absolutely. You're correct. And I remember, that's my generation. I remember listening to those stories and thinking, wow, that is so far from my reality. And I know for a lot of people, the Breonna Taylor case and the outcome of it, on top of the passing of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, now people are like, okay, now we have another vacancy on the Supreme Court. We already, I believe she died on Friday night, and I want to say within an hour, Mitch McConnell and President Trump and everybody else was like, well, we're about to call a vote. And I'm like, she's not even in the ground yet.
Oh, right.
She just died, whether she died in the morning or 5 minutes before. Do you have no dignity? And so when I see these conversations on Facebook, or I see them across social media where they're on Twitter or what have you, I look at these people and I'm like, who are you justifying? Because all you're showing me is that you're okay with this type of behavior.
Basically, they're okay with open racism because back when that one justice died and Obama was still president, they held that vote for
Yes.
months until after the election.
Yes, they did.
Held it months.
Yes. And the excuse was we needed to let the next president make that decision. And,
Yep.
and it's funny how words come back to haunt people.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And they don't want to follow their own words. And it's, I watch a lot of the back and forth on a lot of you watch like Detroit news links when they post stories. Really, you see a lot of foreign influence. The ones or sees like outline, people who are super racist really wants this type of world. But we have to look at people like George Clooney, who is, he's from Kentucky. He said this is not the Kentucky he believes in. He's very strong on that point, and we need more people like him. We really need to get out and vote, so we don't have for it. Our culture cannot afford 4 more years to this. Period.
Absolutely. And I know politically there are a few groups. There are Republicans for Biden. There's the Lincoln Project. Today, there was a letter that I posted from a group of retired or foreign officers, so ambassadors, military people, other type of staff who have worked in government, all signed this letter saying that Trump is a threat to American democracy. So we see it. The question is, will people come out and vote? And I know we keep stressing voting, and I know I've had this conversation, and I think you were in on one of the conversations where people said, well, Biden's not going to be able to fix it. And I said, unfortunately, no one's going to be able to fix it, because what's happened is people now feel emboldened to say whatever they want and even reach out and touch you and do whatever they want.
And that's the more these things happen, because we just had a case, last story like 2 days ago, where a white woman threw a bottle at a black jogger.
Yes, I was thinking of that.
Yeah, and it was caught on tape. So I hate to say it, but this has been their tricks forever. They goad you into reaction.
Yes.
And think about it, once you commit to the reaction, then a lot of times, because of the indignance, you commit to the overreaction, not to get you in the system. But I'm glad we have these cameras to get these people on tape and get them out of the way.
Absolutely.
People that really starts the riots.
That's right. Because that woman that you're referring to, that happened in New York. It was a black woman was jogging. She was minding her own business. And this woman took a bottle and threw it at her and hit her on her back. I believe it was a plastic bottle. I don't know if it had anything in it, but I know that it hit her and she turned around and someone else took video. It was not her. And she didn't report it. And people said, why didn't she report it? And somebody said, do you know what Black people go through in this country every day? My husband was driving our then kindergartner to school. This was several years ago. He's almost a teenager now. So this is over 7 years ago, maybe. And he was on his way taking our son to kindergarten, minding his own business, obeying traffic laws, not doing anything outlandish. And a white guy drove up to him or next to him in his truck, rolled his window down, said, N-word, go back to Africa.
Wow, I can do you one better. As of I used to work at Chrysler Plant in Marysville, Michigan,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're not from Michigan, Marysville is about 50 miles outside of Detroit. Very white rural area, just south of Port Huron.
Mm-hmm.
And I would see the rebel flags, the Confederate flag on a number of occasions. And earlier this year, before I got transferred to Detroit, I think they had a vote for a city council, and it made the news. The one white lady running for city council said Marysville should be more white.
Wow. Wow.
That was either earlier this year or later last year. She just out and said it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we're living in very real times.
Absolutely. We all should vote for Biden because we need to save our democracy. However, it is going to take the collective work of all of us to get rid of racism. That is not something that one person can solely do. Martin Luther King couldn't even do that, nor could Malcolm. They killed them for it, trying to bring people together because they were afraid that once people came together, they would realize that we are more similar than we are different.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I want to switch gears a little bit because all these conversations are raising our anxiety and our depression levels. And I want to give you some statistics. And I know that you know some of these things. There has been an increase in the United States at 8.5% increase in the number of adults who are reporting anxiety. And 27.8% of people who are reporting this are now seeking actual treatment, whether it's therapy, whether it's medication. What do you think about that? I mean, in terms of where our anxiety, because a lot of people are nervous, and I know everybody carries a weapon now, and it does feel like every time you hear a situation, you're waiting to hear, did they have a gun? Because, you worry that somebody is going to haul off and shoot somebody.
Well, it's already starting to happen. I think a lot of the anxiety definitely comes from the times we're living in right now. That's because you don't feel safe when you leave the neighborhood. I didn't feel safe when I worked in Marysville, Michigan. I know I wasn't safe when I drove in other parts of Michigan. So, and that was last year. We're talking about right now, given the Breonna Taylor verdict and everything else. Our awareness levels are so high now because we have to be aware.
Mm-hmm.
We had to be aware of what's going on around us, and then we had to be aware of how it's affecting our children, our spouses. Making sure our parents are okay. Then on top of that, make sure that we are healthy. So that's a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety on people. We've never, I say, as a culture, haven't faced in quite some time. So yes, those numbers are going to spike, and I think they're going to go up closer we get to election, because people really don't know what's going on. And for African American men, we have to sharpen ourselves because we don't know what's happening. We had to be prepared to protect our families. We had to be prepared to educate our children better when they leave the house, because now we're in a state of worry. We are the protectors. So our alarms are going off right now. So I can definitely identify with all the anxiety because I feel it. But we're going to have to learn how to channel it. There's an app called Calm. Sometimes you just sit and listen to something calm, music, whatever, just kind of like get your focus back, because once anxiety takes over, then you're no good to anybody because you're not thinking logically. So I think definitely I award, my hats off to those people that are getting therapy, because I got therapy. getting help, and we need to continue to do that.
It is very important. And the other thing that I would suggest to people, in addition to all those great things that you said, is to limit how much you watch the news. Because if you watch the news continuously, it will have you in a state of panic. If you stay on social media all day and click on every news site article or participate in every argument, and I tell people now, I said, I don't do that anymore. I don't have the energy for it. I'm protecting myself, keeping my sanity. Because one of the things I realized, there are people who you can present facts to, who you can show them alternatives, and no matter what you say, they will resort back to whatever the base thinking that they have at the moment, and it becomes frustrating. And I tell people, I said, there are people who sit behind keyboards and they just want to argue all day like a bully.
Yeah, and think about it, and a lot of these people are not even from here.
Mm-hmm.
A lot they're from, and then, they asked the Mueller report. A lot of them from Russia. They're trying to influence these races and kind of like get them amped up. There's not. They really don't care about what's going on. They come if it's a script. It's just people behind keyboard with Trump's talking points, talking to you, and trying to hammer these points and get other people to believe it. So all it is, fake profiles,
Mm-hmm.
made up. That's all it is.
And I remember hearing that from the Mueller report, where they were talking about how the Russians were using bots and fake profiles and other things to start trouble amongst the races. And it's interesting because you said earlier, a lot of people had an issue with us as Americans electing President Barack Obama. And it's funny because I don't care what anybody says. If one person, meaning President Trump, is always, every time you turn around, when someone asks him something, that's Obama's fault. That means you have an obsession with him. That means that you are comparing yourself to him. That means that you feel small in comparison to him. And you're trying to do everything that you can do to muddle who he is personally and professionally. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. This is what's been about from the start. But the reality is that that level of thinking has cost over 200,000 lives from COVID.
Absolutely. It sure has.
Yeah, because President Obama had the pandemic response in place with a pandemic response team in place, and Trump came in and just removed it.
That's right.
Let all this happen, and that's when your level of thinking has caused the deaths of real people, American people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I came across an article yesterday. I don't know if you're familiar with Travel Noir
Uh,
magazine. And I came across something troubling because, are you familiar with the Green Book?
Not offhand.
So the Green Book was the book that Black people would use to travel different places. And it told you where you could go where it was safe. And a term that we use, but not necessarily in the same context that it was used pre-civil rights, called a sundown town. You know what a sundown town is?
Yes.
And
Be there by sundown. Yeah.
that's right. It's dangerous. If you are Black, it's trouble for you. You probably will lose your life. San Antonio was listed in Travel Noir as a sundown town.
Yeah, I believe that because there have been some people coming missing from there recently, mostly Army veterans.
That's true.
Yeah, and those articles have been really like eye opening. Like they're going after Army vets. I mean, people who are active servicemen.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that crosses a whole different line. You just going over somebody walking down the street. You go after somebody who's protecting and serving our country. That's a whole nother level of disrespect on top of.
Yes. Like I said, there is so much to digest. It is just, And it is just an enormous burden to be Black. And I say that not as a disrespect to us as Black people. It makes life difficult. However, we still, in the midst of all obstacles, we still manage to soar, to do great things, to lead changes and lead charges at corporations and sports and music and movies. It is amazing to see.
Yeah, and and I was watching the Matrix Revolutions the other day, and Lawrence Fishburne had a great line where he's speaking to the people of Zion before the machines was coming.
Hmm.
And he said, we've faced all these things, but at the end of the day, we're still here. So
Yes.
we're still here.
Hmm.
No matter what else happened before, we are still here. And that was like a very important statement to make, and a statement we have to make today. We're still here. No matter what comes apart, we're still here. We're still going to be here.
That's right. That's right. So, Kelly, our time is going quickly. As always, we always have great conversations. The next couple months are going to be, well, actually, the next month and I think a couple weeks. It's about 40 days. And then hopefully we will have an election free of hijinks. I don't necessarily believe that because I know that there's going to be issues with mail in ballots and all those things.
They're already started.
They did. They have already started. What advice would you give to people, specifically to Black men, to help them get through this? Because you talked about how the alarms are going off, and we know men are the protectors, and there's a natural desire to protect one's family. What would you tell them and how to guard themselves and protect themselves?
Uh, I'm just brother up. Make sometimes I say brother up by just if you see another black man in the area or whatever, just be watchful of each other. One, just don't be. I know this the whole macho, gonna be hard type. Later for that, we have to brother up and watch out for each other. And if I see like a black family, I'm watching all black families in my vicinity, and we have to do that for each other. And just come together at all times. We don't have to sit all together and be kumbaya and come with some kind of military thing. We just be vigilant. Start at being vigilant. Brother up, be vigilant, and if everybody's cool and everybody make eye contact, if everything cool, then be cool.
Does that go for women as well?
Absolutely, but just know we're watching. I just want to tell black women, if we're watching. I don't care what you see or say out there. We're watching.
It is great to know that you are watching because, as I posted on social media today, the Black woman is the least protected person on the planet. It seems like we're always under threat, along with the Black man. Just always something is happening. And yes, we hope for a day when it will stop. However, as you said, we need to brother up, look out for one another, be vigilant, and remember, as Lawrence Fishburne said, we are still here. Thank you, Kelly, for being on the Kim B. Davis show today. Tell us how we can reach you. Tell us about your blog and any other new things that you have coming up.
I guess a few things. You can always find me on Facebook, and you can find my blog, soulfulpages.com. And you can find me on Twitter at Kelly G Live and Instagram at Kelly G Live 72, or I might have that backed up. But if you put Kelly G Live, I'll pop right up. Also, I can be doing a little acting soon for a good friend of ours, so we'll see how that happens. But definitely be looking out for me. Definitely, next few months, I'm going in and we're going to have to get ourselves together.
Congratulations on the new acting gig. I think I know what you're talking about. I'm going to leave that to her to time when she comes on the show, we can talk about it. But that is fantastic. Thank you, Kelly, for coming on, for sharing your thoughts and wisdom, and for continuing to push mental health for us, because Yes, we have to keep our bodies healthy, but we also have to keep our minds intact and our spirits intact as well. You have been watching the Kim B. Davis Show. Thank you again for tuning in. We hope to see you and see you on our next episode. And as always, remember, be magnificent.